Lots of new rules released by GW. Time for another Age of 8th discussion.
I want my Death Star again.
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, another Age of 8th discussion. In this video we're going to be talking about the new release of Warhammer 40k, New Hammer 8th edition, whatever you want to call it. So I am going to go over some of the rules, but it's not really a rules-based video, it's more just a discussion about my thoughts, my fears, etc. about what we're hearing about the new edition of Warhammer 40k. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is detachments. But how am I going to play you without any formations, without a decurium? You can do what? You can take what? I have no idea. A formation? Your formation? What about my formation? Whose formation? How many formations? Where'd you get that formation? Where's that formation from? Is that from this book, that book, from the data slate, from this box set? So yeah, formations are gone. A thing in the past. Now how do I feel about this? Because obviously my Necron book in particular uses some very good formations, some very useful formations. But to be honest with you, I'm quite pleased with this. I'm happy that they are going. So I think they do make the game incredibly complicated. I think they restrict you quite a bit in terms of your army selection, especially if you want to obviously get the best rules that you can get. And also I find it quite difficult to keep on top of things. I mean, there's formations that come out with models like box set formations, and there's formations in various different publications, and each army has their own set of formations, and it's just a minefield. So I think to get rid of formations is great. Now in replace of that we've got 12 new detachments. Now we haven't seen all of the detachments so far. I think we've only seen about 3 or so. And they seem to go in incremental order depending on what you can take. Now there's benefits from taking these detachments or being battle forged or bound, whatever you want to call it. So it's going to be quite similar to formations, except everyone's going to have access to exactly the same detachments, and I think that's great. So everyone's on the same page. Now it seems like, say, the very basic formation is designed probably for smaller games, maybe up to 500 points or so, and then as I said, as you go through the formations it seems like there's more and more that you can take, and probably more benefits as well. Now one good thing about what I've seen so far is there's an additional section for flyers. So flyers are no longer taking up, say, your heavy support slot or your flyer, your fast attack support. There's actually a flyer slot now, and I think that's really good as well. Just to freeze up all of those slots, and I potentially would see that we might see some more flyers in the game. So I think that's another great bonus. So I'm really happy actually how they're handling the detachment side of things. And the other thing is, which we know about anyway, is factions. So if you want to stay battle forged, get bonuses from the detachments, as long as you keep within the same faction. So for example, if it was Chaos, as long as you had Chaos Space Marines with your, say, demons, they'll be in the same detachment, all battle forged, and everything will be good. Of course you can go open play, you can go unbound as such, and you can take whatever you want, you just won't get the bonuses from the detachments. Now it's going to be interesting to see what the other detachments will look like. I'm not too concerned or worried about them, to be honest with you, as long as I can get my 6 squads of elites from one of them, so that I can still play my Flayed One army, then I'm going to be happy. But you know, I'm pretty old school. I grew up with, you know, you had to take 1 HQ and 2 troops, and then you could take another 4 troops, 3 elites, 3 heavy support, 3 fast attack, and that was it. You know, the days of before you could even take dual CADs. So I'm very, very happy with the detachments rules. Okay, so let's now have a look at large models. 20 wounds, you're kidding me.
What do you mean I'm not a gargantuous creature anymore?
There you go, that's 10 wounds. Take that, mofo. Just a mere flesh wound. I've still got 10 wounds left. So yeah, large models, totally changing. So we no longer have super heavy, or we no longer have gargantuan creatures. So that has come out of the book. I'm pleased with that, to be fair, because I think it just got a little bit silly introducing those. I think they're fine for bigger apocalypse type games, but for our standard games it was a little bit silly, so I'm pleased to see that. And that's almost being replaced now by those type of creatures are basically going to get more wounds. I think that's a pretty good solution. We've obviously discussed about wound counters in the previous episode. If you haven't seen that, go and check that out. Yeah, so a Gorkanaut, for example, I think is going to have like 20 wounds or something. Say a Tyranid Morlock's probably going to have 12 wounds. That's how they're sort of solving that. Now, alongside that, they're also making it so that as you strip wounds off, the models get weaker, and it seems like it's going to be dedicated to whatever they're good at. So if you've got a unit which is, say, good at shooting, then it's those shooting stats which get weaker as it takes wounds. Now I think this is great. I think that this is going to get more realistic on the table, which is great. I mean, it's going to make it more cinematic. And the fact that the models get wounded gradually and gradually get worse, I'm just wondering if there's going to be a critical point that we're going to be looking at on the table. So rather than thinking, right, a flying hive tyrant, you know, I've got to kill that thing. Maybe now you're thinking, right, the flying hive tyrant, it's got, I don't know, 12 wounds. All I need to do is get it down to 4 wounds, and it's not really going to be very effective. So I'm just wondering if we're going to see that, where we're going to be looking to cripple units more than kill units. That's an interesting thought. Now obviously I play Tyranids, and one of the Tyranid armies that I like to play is the Nidzilla. So basically all monstrous creatures. I have to say I'm getting a little bit, whilst I think what they've done is great, from a gamer point of view, I'm thinking, how is that going to affect my army? By the end of the game, if now all my monstrous creatures that have got many wounds on, they're going to be fairly ineffective, probably, compared to previous editions. But we'll have to see, because obviously playtesting is the thing. So we're going to have to wait and see. Overall, I think it's a great move, but as a Tyranid player, I'm a bit nervous about the models getting worse as they get wounded. And Tyranids obviously aren't in an amazing place at the moment, and I'd hate for them to get worse. So fingers crossed for the Nids. As we move on to the next topic, and that is infantry. Hang on a minute, I've got split fire. I can shoot at 2 targets. I may have a small gun, but I can still wound you. Boo, boo, boo. So next is infantry. Yeah, the opposite basically to large models. Now infantry have had a few changes. In particular, it seems like they are going to be better at scoring than the larger models. Now I think this is good, because we don't want this game to become a who's got the largest model fest. So I think if infantry models, smaller models, are more important to actually winning the game in terms of objectives, then I think that is great. I think that's a good way to do. Now we don't know the ins and outs of what that's going to be, but I think it's a good way to go. It also gives us an indication, which I don't think I've heard anyone talk about this apart from Fritz, but gives us an indication of what the missions are going to be, because I think that's a massive part of the game. Yeah, what are the missions going to be? Well, now we know that there are going to be objectives, so a little sneak of what the missions may potentially consist of. Anyway, yeah, so what else have infantry got as a bonus? Well, now they can basically kill anything, or at least have the chance of wounding something. So the new ethos of the edition is that anything can wound anything, which is, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, it makes sense, I suppose, because it gives you at least half a chance. At least you're not going to have a unit that, you know, you're in range of something, it's like, well, I was waste time shooting because I can't even hit it. So I think at least it gives you that fun factor to the game. You know, in real life, I mean, people are talking about, oh, how does a bolt gun kill a land raider, you know, wound a land raider, for example. Well, I suppose there is a small chance that that bolt gun might hit like a plasma conduit or something and, you know, cause some damage, or something like that. So, you know, use your imagination. But on the whole, I think it's good because I think it makes the game more fun, you know, if you've got half a chance. And I think it potentially could give us some nice heroic stories as well. So I think that's a good thing. So we've got a brand new 2-wound chart. The numbers are looking quite similar to what we're used to, with the exception of any 6 basically wound something. So if you're wounding something which is over double what your strength is, you can still wound it on a 6. Now instantly I'm thinking, well, what about our Gauze weapons? Because our Gauze weapons wound anything on 6s, monstrous creatures, and well, and now in the current Necron Codex, obviously they can automatically glance. And I've seen that in action, and it's pretty powerful. So I'm quite interested to see how this this edition works out, because what's going to happen to our Necrons? I think maybe you'll get a modifier to the chart, so probably you'll wound anything on 5s rather than 6s as a Necron Gauze weapon. I don't know, I'm just guessing, of course. But it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens from that new chart on the table. Now the other little thing is split fire. So our infantry units now can all split fire. So it seems like it's not even just a one man can split fire. It seems like any model in the unit can shoot at any target. Now whether that's split fire to, I'm not quite sure about this, whether it's just one other unit or if it's any units around. Now if it is any units around, that could be very powerful. And I'm starting to think now that shooting is still going to be incredibly powerful. And I'm also thinking that multiple small units is probably going to be a bit of a thing of the past. You know, one reason for taking MSU is so that you can have a small unit. Say if I take 5 Immortals, it doesn't matter how many guns a unit has that's shooting into those 5 Immortals. The best they can do is kill 5 Immortals. Well, now with split fire, and we've seen the power of that with some of the Tau split fire units and stuff. But yeah, if you can split fire, that means you can take out that unit, and then you can take out another unit as well, because you can obviously shoot at multiple targets. So I'm thinking probably MSU may be a thing of the past. So it's all very interesting. I think it's going to make the infantry models fun and also competitive with larger models, which is good. We don't want any one unit type to shine too much. We want a nice balanced game. Okay, let's have a look at the next topic of characters.
Who destroyed my Death Star? You will pay for this. I want my Death Star again.
Okay, so the next topic is characters, yeah. And this is where GW are trying to reduce the Death Star unit as we know it. Now there's always been Death Star units in one sort of shape or another, and I'm sure there will be in the future. But what they're trying to remove is the ultimate Death Star unit, and that's the one where you have multiple characters making a unit almost unkillable. So hopefully that is going to disappear. Yeah, and how they're doing that is they're making characters unable to join a unit, which is very interesting indeed, and actually harps back to when I first started playing, when characters couldn't join units anyway, and they had this special rule where you couldn't target them unless they were the closest target within 12 inches, and that's come back again. So again, that's it's quite interesting to see how sometimes they recycle some of these rules as the editions go. Now there is an exception to this, so if your model has more than 10 wounds, then you can actually target that model even if they're not the closest target within 12 inches. And And I think that's good because it gives you half a chance. So for example, if you've got, is it Magnus, is it? So he's on 13 wounds or something, at least you've got a chance of targeting him before he gets to you. It would be a bit silly if he was like totally hidden and you couldn't get to him. Now having said that, I don't know how it works, so is it just a starting amount of wounds? So for example, if you had 13 wounds and then you took 4 wounds off and he went down to 9 wounds, does that mean you no longer can target him? Now he's dropped down below 10. I imagine you probably still can target him. It's probably the starting amount of wounds, but that's an interesting thing that's not been covered, I don't think. Yeah, so from my point of view, what am I thinking? I'm thinking Necron Catan. So how many wounds does a Necron Catan have? Would it be a character? It would be great if a Catan was a character and it had less than 10 wounds. It might give us half a chance of getting a Catan on the table, across the table, and certainly if we have a new movement profile, so maybe it's no longer 6 inches, maybe it could be 10 inches or whatever. So if you've got a faster moving Catan with, which is a character and has low wounds, we could see Catan's back. How cool would that be for Necrons? I would love that. We'll have to see, but it's interesting. Now, obviously, the characters can still buff units around them, especially obviously if they've got psychic powers. And the good thing about not being in a unit, you can almost bubble wrap your character, so you can effectively help multiple units around him, not just the unit that he's with. They've also introduced a new rule called, well, it's not a new name, but Heroic Intervention. Now is a special rule where if a unit is in assault close by to the character, he can basically join that assault, like a follow-up move, I think they call it. So that's good to see as well. So it sounds like the characters are going to be more than just sitting in a unit. Hopefully we'll see some more characters and a bit more fun play. I mean, I'm finding that personally with my Necrons. You know, all I really do is take an Overlord, stick him at the back with some warriors, and that's it. So maybe now we'll see a bit more use for characters. So yeah, I think it's all interesting, and it's, again, you know, playtesting is the key thing. Okay, so let's have a look at some more weapons. 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4, 5 potato, 6 potato. How many dice more? Okay, so we got some more information about weapons, in particular about combi weapons. So this is an interesting one where you can basically now shoot the combi weapon, both guns, at a slightly lower stat line. Or you can choose to shoot the melter or plasma, whatever you've got on there, or the bolter. And the melter is no longer a one-shot wonder. So effectively now we've got a melter gun. I can't see anyone really shooting anything else unless you've got an emergency. So I think it's made combi weapons much stronger. And yeah, it's good because our characters are, you know, carrying these bigger guns around, so it sort of makes sense. So I think that's a good move. They indicated about the blast weapons, which obviously we no longer have the templates. So very similar to flamers, we're going to have a D6 amount of wounds. Now, obviously that, I mean, I've heard some people say, well, that's not very good, so now it's going to make blasts less effective, and I can see that. But then on the other side of the coin, we're no longer going to have scatters on the blast, so they're going to be a lot more accurate. So I'm now thinking, actually, I think that blast weapons could be a lot better. Now I don't know whether plasma is going to get hot still, but in my Space Wolves I've got a set of Longfang plasma cannons. Now they used to scatter off, they used to get hot, etc. And yeah, okay, if you did get a dead-on hit, I mean, they're only small blasts, so its maximum is usually 3 models anyway. Now, I think large blasts are D6, so I'm assuming small blasts are going to be D3. So yes, you've got to roll a dice to get 3 hits. But if there's no scatter, I think that's actually going to be a benefit. So if I take 4 Longfangs, I'm going to have 4 D3 dice. It's a reasonable amount of wounds. and with no scatter, they're guaranteed wounds. I'm guaranteed at least 4 models being hit. So I like the idea of that. I actually think it sounds good, and I think it moves towards the fact that potentially shooting is actually going to be even better than it is now. And that brings me on to the last one, Twinlinked. Twinlinked? I'm going to need more dice. So yeah, Twinlinked guns now give you double the amount of dice. Yeah, think about that. Double the amount of dice. So a twin-linked wave serpent with scatter lasers no longer gets 4 shots that you can re-roll. You get 8 shots. And you need 3s anyway, so you know, the twin-linked usually didn't really help you. But double the amount of dice, that is going to help you. So all of a sudden, twin-linked weapons are going to be incredibly powerful. It's going to be the go-to thing that we are all going to look for. I can see it now. Everyone is going to want twin-linked. Please God, don't let there be a psychic power that gives a unit twin-linked. So powerful shooting is still around, that's for sure. I mean, we know that assault is going to be better, so we're hopefully going to get a mixture of assault and shooting being both powerful. But from what I've heard so far, it seems like shooting is still going to be more powerful than assault. And although we've got loads of wounds on our creatures, from the sounds of it, with the amount of bullets which are going to be out there, those wounds are going to be shredded very, very quickly. I don't know that necessarily we're going to see such a balanced game as maybe they're making out. As I always say, 'tis in the playtesting. Okay, so now let's have a look at data sheets. Necron Ghost Arc, 100 wounds. Wow, that sounds good. Hold on a minute. Ah, that's 10 wounds. Right, data sheets, and I'm actually quite happy to see these. From what I've seen, these are going to be really awesome. Now, as you already know, probably from the last video, I don't own an iPad, etc. I don't own Battlescribe, etc. I'm pretty old-fashioned. Actually, with my army lists, what I do is I copy all of the stats down, all of the special weapons, all the special rules down onto a Word document from the codex, and then I make my army list from there, print them out, and I've got all the stats listed down on my my army list. Basically a manual version of Battlescribe. Now GW are going to introduce these data sheets for our models. Now we don't know exactly how we're going to get hold of them, whether they're going to be electronic, whether the models will come with them, whether it's going to be a set of cards, so you might get, say, Necron datasheet cards. That's the way I'm thinking probably they're going to go. It's more money, it's a bit like having psychic power cards. So we're probably going to have to all buy datasheet cards. But I think these are really, really awesome because you've got an instant look at all of the stats for your models on a small, probably, like I said, a card that you can then just hand to your opponent. If he's got any queries, you can easily access it. You don't have to look through your codex, your iPad, army book, etc. So I think it's a great thing to have. Now, hopefully, with these data sheets, they're not going to be too small. And the reason why I say that is because we're not all young. I mean, I've got to the age now where I'm starting to need spectacles to read, some reading glasses, and I'm finding sometimes the Maelstrom cards are incredibly difficult to read, especially if there's not much light around. So I'm hoping that the data cards aren't going to be as small in terms of the writing. So yeah, GW, we're not all young, we don't all have good eyes. Let's have some bigger writing, please. Yeah. Okay, so that's it for this video. I've covered all the topics which have been released up until I made this video. I will continue talking about all the new stuff that comes out over the next week, next Monday. So for now, please comment, like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell button so you don't miss out on any of my other videos about the wonders of Warhammer 40k. And I'll see you in the next video.